Hi family, welcome back to my channel. It's your sister Portia Mha once more. Today we continue from where we started from. Okay, the first episode was basically about my introduction, welcoming everybody to my channel, and today is the official episode 1, okay, where we'll be talking about my childhood, because in everything that we are and become, we are made by our childhood. Our childhood is like a foundation of a house. For you to build a beautiful house, you need to have a very strong foundation. So some of our childhood were distorted somehow, and it made us to become who we are. Whether we like it or not, whether we'd like to admit it or not, but our childhood contributes a lot to our later life stage. Well, I was raised by a single mom, my queen, Elizabeth. May her soul continue to rest in peace. I was, they say a baby's made by two, but raised by the whole village. I am that a child who was raised by a whole village. By that, I mean I was born and bred in Begersdal location in Krugersdorp, in Leratom Hospital. But I did not leave my childhood in Begersdal. I was between Begersdal location, a location in the West Rand. I was between Begersdal and Ottosdal. Ottosdal is a very small township. Ottosdal is a very small town in northwest after Tichani, Klerksdorp, Tichani, then Ottosdal. And that's where I usually tell people I'm from, because as small as it is, it made me who I am, and I love it too much. Begersdal, small as it is, known for riots and all the bad things, that's where I was born, and I love it because it made me who I am. My mother was a single woman and a single mother who worked very hard for us, and she could not always be there for us, both my sister and my two brothers. So we were either with her or with them, but my little brother and I spent most of our time in Ottosdal with my grandmother up until she died. But I did not come back home after her passing. I actually came back home somewhere around 1998, late 1998. I think December time, then I went back to my mother. Okay, my childhood is full of a happy moment. My childhood is full of pain. My childhood is full of scars that made me who I am. From my childhood there was rape. From my childhood there was child labor. I actually worked for a farmer. I was earning 25 rand. I was earning 25 rand per, I think he was giving us 25 rand per fortnight. But I never got the chance to have my money on my hand, you know, because my auntie was like, one of my aunties was like our supervisor. They will take us from school, Ramukhopa Primary School, one school in the farms, where they will fill us inside the tractor at the back, children, and take us to work in a farm where we would see snakes. And it was very tough. It's that part of the childhood that I love for some odd reason, because I love hard work. I enjoyed that part. Someone would say it's child labor, but it was one of my favorite parts, because I will eat my favorite food lunchtime. I love pap and milk so much. So when we were working at a farm, the farmer would give us free pap and milk. So yeah, I enjoyed that. To me, there was nothing wrong with it at the time because I was still a child. In Ramokgopa Primary School, I used to be in class with my brother. Our tables were facing that way. My brother's tables were facing that way. My brother, I think, was 2 classes before, like in front of me. Like my brother was doing, I think, standard 3, and I was doing standard 1. I'm not sure about that. I don't remember nicely, but I know that I was in one class. We were in one class with our seniors. So we found ourselves in this school called Ramokgopa Primary School, and it was still nice. As sad as it was, we were good kids, you know. It was nice. I didn't see anything wrong with it at that time because I didn't understand that we shouldn't be going through what we're going through because we were kids. A farmer shouldn't be taking us on a tractor at the back and taking us to his farm and paying us 25 rand. So it's part of my childhood and I loved it. And as a girl who grew up in the villages, you know, in the villages a lot of things happen, you know. Old men would want to take advantage of a child, a baby, you know. And those are the things that by God's grace I survived, and I will not dwell much on my childhood because it is full of aches. It is full of stories within that took a long to heal. I grew up, and that childhood, to me as a child, it was nice. It was beautiful. I was a happy baby, but it made a very big mark and ache and gap, and it left a very big space as an adult, because as I look back, then I realized that that was child labor, you know. Who is Portia Mahau? Basically, that's her childhood. A young woman who grew up between Northwest Province and Gauteng Province. A traveler. Yes, I was born a traveler. And my name, I was born Portia Faku. Portia Ifeletswe Faku. I was named after my grandmother. I later became Portia Ifeletswe somebody as I was getting married. So I moved from Portia Faku to Mrs. Somebody. I didn't enjoy much my name as a Mrs. Somebody because I later changed my name to Nyamadani. In fact, my name was given to me that was my spiritual name. I want us to dwell a bit more on names because that is one of other things that we'll be discussing and that I'll be telling you about with regards to spirituality. Nyamadani was a name that I was called, and a name that I took with pride. When I speak of Nyamadani, it's like something in me says, this is who I was, and I carried that name with pride. I prided in that name, and I valued that name. Nyamadani would be like, I am not Nyamadani's twin, I am Nyamadani. Nyamadani is a name of all the names that I've mentioned, a name that I somehow was more proud of because it was a name that signified who I am. I became Nyamadani after like I went to a Phehlweni initiation school where I became a Sangoma and I had my name. And what's fascinating about it, I will say, I will be telling more on it when I come to the episode of Iphehlo. Unyamatani is a name that I embraced more than names. Unyamatani is a name that was given to me by my ancestors. Well, when they gave me that name, I had my own questions. But it's a name that I embraced, and I later became Portia Mohau, who I am even today. Well, people get confused. Portia Mohau, so your surname is Mohau. No, my surname is not Mohau. My name is Mohau. I do not carry a surname anymore. That also will be one of the lessons in the spiritual journey. I carry the surname in a book, the ID document, of course, but my name is Portia Mohau. And I will remain Portia Mohau until God calls me home. Why did I become Portia Mohau? I would even remove Portia and just leave Mohau, because I have seen the grace of God, I've seen the mercy of God, I've seen the love of God, I've seen the favor of God, and I've experienced it. And Mohau tells a story of me, because everything about me, I look around and I see that there was no magic here. It was only the power of God and the grace of God. So yes, that is all about my name, my friends. I've got sister, I've got brothers, and I've got 3 dads. I know someone would wonder, why do I say I've got 3 dads? But I've got 3 dads, and that's what God has blessed me with, and I love it that way. And I usually tell my stepdad, like, he calls me princess, you know, that you are the best thing that has ever happened to me. And indeed, he is also the best thing that has ever happened to me. I do not believe that people meet by mistake. I believe that God brings everybody in your journey, in your life, for a certain purpose, for a certain role that they will play in your life permanently. So basically, my life was all about, my childhood was all about traveling, meeting this one, meeting that one. I was surrounded by a lot of aunts, I was surrounded by a lot of uncles, I was surrounded by a lot of outsiders, because my family was a family that my grandmother loved people, my mother loved people. So there were times at home my mother will remove us, let us sleep on the floor, so that every woman she sees on the street without a home would sleep with us. That taught us a lot. That taught me a lot. That taught me genuine love. That taught me genuine kindness. That sometimes I would be like, why was she like that? Because it doesn't pay. But when I get older, I realized that my mother was actually paving way for us and showing us the kind of life that we have to live. You know, if human beings could be kind, if human beings could be genuinely loving, we would heal so many things in this world. Portia Mohau became a mom at a very young age. I was a mom at the age of 15, something that I still carry in my heart, and I have a beautiful 22-year-old baby. I call her my baby. She doesn't want me to call her my baby. She says, Mama, you need to accept that we're growing, and indeed they are growing so fast. You know, just yesterday my son, 19, was also telling me that Portia Mohau is a proud mom of her kids, and through them I've seen life better. because for me to heal from the age of childhood, I needed to see life better through the eyes of my kids, you know. And I lost my mom at 15. My baby was only 3 weeks old. So life wasn't fair after that. Life was not fun. Life was not friendly. I lost my beautiful queen, and that left a certain gap, painful gap, that also contributed to any spirit attacking a child without a mom, a child without a dad who's at home, because you are now vulnerable and you are now alone, you know. Whenever I spoke, I could not speak about my mom without shedding tears of pain. But now, whenever I speak of my mom, I carry tears of joy, because I tried to commit suicide, I think 3-4 times, because of the loss of my mom. To me, everybody was the cause of my mother's death. I could not just accept that such a kind, loving human being would die, and there was no one except me and my sister, you know. Okay, she died in the hands of her mother, but she was very sick with only me and my sister. Whereas when she was working, she had everything, she was taking care of everybody. And for the fact that my dad left her with us, that also was something that I could not heal from. You know, when you are growing up, you do not reason with unbiased mind. You do not reason with wisdom. When you are a young girl in pain, you reason with pain, and hatred is formed within you at that period. So Poshamhau had a certain hatred that my mother went through all that because of a man. To me, a man was a problem. To me, a man was not only useless, but a man was something that you need to stay away from. Because I felt that, how can a man make kids and leave a woman with his kids, you know? I didn't understand that before kids, there's a relationship, you know? And a relationship, there are many problems. I only understand now that I'm big, that you shouldn't blame your dad for not being there. Maybe your mother did some mess somewhere, or maybe your dad did some mess that made them become two separate individuals. And their decision at that time were based on them, and they forgot about us. Or it was based on us, we do not know that. But what I know at the time, I could not reason to that. I blamed everybody for my mother's pain, which is very bad because I carried hate. I was a loving person, yes, but I carried hate within myself. Hate towards men, hate towards a lot. A lot of people became enemies. Like, you would speak, but to me, you were just saying words that I did not trust, that I would not take into consideration, because to me, I was right. That is a very, very disturbed mental disorder. I don't know if there's a diagnosis for that, but that's who I was. Thank God I am no longer like that. Everybody makes mistakes in this life. Kids are born out of wedlock and people go their separate ways, but with wisdom, people can become co-parents and become the best friends and best parents forever for their kids. Because when a couple has a child, whether they get married or not, this couple becomes family for life. You know, they become relatives for life because they share a blood, they share a bone, they share a human being. So they need to work together in order for the kid to become a very matured and respectful and well-grown adult who doesn't have to go through child depression and all that. So my childhood was not lousy, it was good, sometimes it was bad, and the best memory of them all is my grandmother. Excuse me, my dear friend. Family. My grandmother was the pillar of the beautiful things I remember about my childhood. My grandmother, who would drink sometimes she was a smoker, sometimes she was drinking, sometimes she quit, you know. One thing I remember is my grandmother would not be without me. My grandmother would, in the villages, when she got angry, maybe one of the kids made her angry, she loved peace so much that she would leave and go to her other cousin friend in another village. Be it at 6 or 4 p.m., she will leave and the village is far. But when she arrives in that village, she will tell the boys of that woman, go fetch her. So they knew that if my grandmother is not around, later that evening, somebody has to walk in and say, we were sent to come fetch her. Maki, that's my nickname. She would be like, go fetch my grandchild. So these boys would, on the way, they would scare me and all that. I was living that life. Wherever my grandmother would go at night, like if she visited a friend or she went out angry, she will not sleep if I'm not around. And I would also not sleep without my grandmother. And my grandmother pumped me with wisdom, idioms, diane. You know, she would tell me stories that were scary. Stories that, when I look at her, I'm like, for real, did that thing happen? You know? And above all, she taught me what my mother taught me. Genuine love and genuine kindness. Those are two things that always broke my heart about their passing and their lives, because they lived for people, but they became nobodies. Like my mom, when she needed people most, people went there. So kindness and love is free, but it breaks heart. To be kind is to sign off yourself, you know, but it's something that you must give. It's free. You do not pay to be kind, you know. You do not pay to love. You know, loving even your worst enemy, you do not pay for that. And my mom and my grandmother demonstrated love, I see. And when you look at life and look at God and realize that God is love, you know, and he demonstrated love. I still don't understand why we do not become loving and kind people. Well, my dear friends, my childhood has drama, mystery, because I was a loner. I was actually a very shy baby. I don't know how I became this, but you hear about it later on. I had no friends, but I had two friends that were unseen. that you hear more about on my spiritual journey. I had a friend of light and I had a friend of dark. And my friends came to me in different ways and different forms. There were times I would go to our local, as young as I was below 14. As young as I would go to a dam in our local area, sit on my own because I used to hear whistles, you know. And I'd follow these whistles. And it was an old man, I used to call granddad, an old man with a long beard. I would sit with him there because I would be sitting on the grass close to the dam, and there would be time. And then when time for me to leave the dam, I would hear a whistle and the old man would be like, no, it's time for you to leave. So for me to trust this, you can call it an imaginary friend because you didn't experience it, but that was real. That was so real. And for me to prove, to accept and believe that my friend was real, he had so many things to do to prove how real he was to me. The first thing he did, he told me about a certain street in my township and said, go to Hunale. There's a street in my area, and he said to me, go that side, there's a stone that you'll find. The stone is so direct to the school, to the primary that I went to. He said, under the stone, you'll find money. Go take it. I kept it there for you. I went there. I picked the stone and I took out the money. It was a lot of 20 rands, you know. And I started believing that this man is real. He was so super white. You know, it's not white, it's pale. His eyes were not white, they were grayish. Everything about him was scary. And that was my friend. My second friend came to me at the age of 10. When my second friend came to me at the age of 10, my stepdad was already staying with us. And when my second friend came, my second friend started showing me things that were scary, you know, because my second friend would honestly not be in line with what I call light now. Whereas my first friend would show me things that are more relevant to light. My second friend was like a human sometimes a snake. And my second friend would promise me to go with me to a place where I will live to own, you know, to have everything. My second friend was more darker, you know, pale as well, but with a more darker spirit, because he would show me half humans, half snakes, half humans, half fishes. He would show me the secrets of the mines, because where I come from, it's a place surrounded by mines. He would show me what to do, what not to do. He would fuel me with hate. He will fuel me with the negativity. He will fuel me with the loneliness, because he didn't want me to be with other people. Whereas my first friend's aim was different. There was a time my first friend said to me, tell your mom and your dad you had a dream where you were sleeping in a room that is dark. They should not feed you anything except mabele and milk for 10 days. you must only be praying. For 10 days, as young as I was, I did not go to school. I don't know what my stepdad and my mother did, but they closed the room because I instructed them that the room had to be dark and I had to pray. My mother and my stepdad were feeding me mabele and milk. For 10 days, I did not go to school. I don't know what the story was at school, but I remember I was in the bedroom instructed by my friend that they did not know about, and I told them it was a dream. I stayed there, I slept. When I came out from that dream, my friend showed me walking in different regions, different areas, walking with nothing but a Bible, with him beside me, showing me that, see there, people are sick, go and pray with me and pray for them, people will be well. As a child, to me, everything was not making sense. While my second friend was more exotic, and that was the appealing friend to me, because he made me fantasize and think more about what I want to own when I grow up, what I want to have when I grow up. I was so materialistic minded, and it didn't make sense still, but I loved my second friend. What happened was my friends disappeared when I went to Pethway. They didn't speak anymore. Like, I would not hear voices anymore. But for them not to walk with me, because I used to walk with them. Throughout my life, I used to walk with these two people, but they came in different times. For them not to be part of me anymore. Like I told you, I'm a rape survivor. After rape, I did not have a connection with my friends, both of them. After the birth of my baby girl, I saw my exotic, dangerous friend. And his eyes were very, very, he was somehow angry. He was somehow blaming me for things that I did not know. To this day, I still blame whatever friend he was, that he was not of God. To somebody, it may be hallucinations, delusions. To somebody who doesn't understand or who was not with me in my childhood, you would never understand. By the grace of God, I do not see these friends anymore, and they stopped when I was around 18, 19. I was already old. I had a baby, 2 kids to be precise. So my life was just a mystery. I remember there was a day my stepdad had a tortoise. As I was sitting next to the tortoise, feeding the tortoise, I was feeding the tortoise cabbage leaves, and I heard a voice. I ran to my stepdad and mom and said, I had ufudo. My stepdad is closer, so he used to call the tortoise Fudozwayo, Fudo. So I ran to him and said, I heard Fudo talking. God knows, if my child could come now and tell me that I heard an animal talking, I would laugh. Remember, I told you that my grandmother used to tell me stories. There's another story that my grandmother told me about a goat that came to her talking. So I don't want to go further into that, because for me, things like that were just delusions. So it happened to me. I had a tortoise talking. Then I believed at that time that, no, there's witchcraft involved because an animal cannot talk. You know, I just ran and said, hey, I heard this tortoise talking. My mother and my stepdad, to this day, I've never discussed that with them. But I remember I was sitting and there was that tortoise and I was feeding it and it spoke in a voice of an old man and it was talking to me. And we were communicating, you know. And one thing I remember, it said everything is going to be okay. So I went and told them, you know, my mother and stepdad were not even serious because they're the ones that could have probably taken me to a psychologist. Because if my child would do that, I would take my child to a psychologist. First, to find out what's wrong mentally with my child, because I would think that my child is mentally disturbed. And I remember, like, I'll be telling you part of my childhood there and there because it's very big. It's very long. Childhood is childhood. I'm 37, you can imagine childhood. So, even in other episodes, I'll always go back to my childhood because a lot of things happened in my childhood that I now laugh about but used to cry about. Because there was a time after my mother was still alive. I used to go to a local clinic to take medication, but I didn't know what medication was that. At some point, I thought that maybe my mother had HIV and giving me HIV, or she had tuberculosis and gave me tuberculosis, so these people are hiding it from me. So I used to go to the clinic to collect this medicine because they told me that if I don't come for medication, I will die. So I remember everything, that from school I would run to the clinic. Oh, lunchtime I would run to the clinic to take medication. I am telling you, friends, family, this is serious. I did not know what that medication was for until I grew up. I love going back to check. So I went back to my childhood and said, no, that was not normal. That was not right. So I went back to my childhood and that thing still disturbed me. What medication was that? Why were these people giving me medication? Why didn't they tell me? What is it for? So I went to the clinic and I found a lady. Beautiful, kind soul. And she explained, she said, no, you had a problem. Yes, I remember the problem, but I didn't know that the problem was the one that made me take medication. I sometimes went unconscious. I used to fall. You would think it's epilepsy, but it was not diagnosed as epilepsy. Whatever it was is the one that made me go and get medication for a certain period. I remember I took that medication for a year and I stopped myself, you know. Nobody stopped me. I was tired of going to the clinic because I first started by skipping one day and going the following day. I wanted to see what will the nurse say. And I realized that no, she would have prepared a certain container for me, kept where she even showed me this, where when you get into my office, go there, collect your medication. That's how. So I was like, no, nothing goes wrong with me if I didn't go. I skipped one day, I didn't die. And I was like, no, these people, I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna go and take that medication. So after about 2 weeks not taking medication, I went back to the sister and she checked me on. She said, no, it's okay, my child. Then everything was fine. So my childhood, my friend, was a childhood that, like I told you, was full of pain, was full of a lot of things, but I still consider it beautiful, you know. I still consider it a childhood that I would not want for my child, of course, and I made sure that my child doesn't have. I'm not saying I'm perfect or a perfect mother or will always be there for them. No, I'm not. And I'm not a mom that would say I know it all or have done it all, but I've protected my kids from one thing that disturbed me most, the absence of my dad in my life. Because any woman who doesn't have a father figure later encounters problems in life, especially with regards to relationships. Any young man that grows without a father figure encounters problems in life, because God was not foolish. God was the infinite wisdom of God made sure that a parent, is made of two genders, a mother and a father. Even if two people were separated, but they must have an agreement of co-parenting, friendship for the sake of the child. So in my case, it was 100% absent. I'm not talking about absenteeism that the person is dead or we don't know where the person is. The person was around, but the person could not fulfill the role of dad full time. We as Africans sometimes we misunderstand this. We need to fix ourselves. We need to help one another in order to heal, to heal our generations, to heal people. Parenting is not money. I need to say this a lot. Parenting is not money. Parenting is never about money. Parenting is about emotion. Parenting is about what's free. To give your child love. Even if they said my father is a businessman, he's a busy man, my father is working where, my mother is working where, but a child feels love. You can be, I know a lot of kids whose parents were overseas and they were here. The kids turned out well because the mother was there. The mother was not there physically, but the mother was there now and then. Hi baby, how are you doing? I love you. You understand? And there's an absent parent. An absent parent will maybe give out money thinking that a child is money. No, that's not it, my brother. That's not it, my sister. Family, that's not it. You are creating a problem. You are creating tomorrow's problem. You are creating someone who's going to be depressed. You are creating someone who's going to be full of hate. Because I had hate. I didn't understand or know depression, but I am definitely sure I was a depressed child. One thing I know, I hated a man with all that was in me. Because to me, a man was selfish. To me, a man was, I'm sorry to use this word, was useless. Because I kept asking myself, how can a man make babies and leave this woman to suffer alone, but a man is there? To me, there was pain. And I thank God, I'm not going to stand here and say I'm perfect or whatever, and I've been a perfect woman. No, I'll be lying. But one thing I'm grateful for, the father of my kids. My kids are not from same dads. It happens to all of us. Yes. These two fathers are the best fathers my kids could ever ask for. With parenting, I am blessed and I'm grateful I met them, even though you'd say, okay, it's mistakes, it's past that made you go through all that. But one thing I admire them for is them as the best dads that they can ever be, because they gave my kids what I wanted them to give my kids. I didn't want my kids to be kids without daddy. I didn't want my kids to be, because I was a child without daddy. And out of that, bad came. Without my first daughter, I'll probably be a lesbian. Staying and living my lesbian life. That we'll talk about as we continue. Yes. So, my sweet darlings, my childhood was never gloomy. My childhood was never always good. It was painful. It was All that, so much that I think my spiritual journey, most of what happened in my childhood contributed. My spiritual unseen friends made things worse as I grew up, because I was falling, but I don't know what was making me fall. And when I fell, I would be like in another land. I was a child that fell. Like, not epilepsy, my darling. Bekitikwela, my daddy would say, bengiyiwela nje, umZulu uzosho. And mutwana no kinikingadeha, kinikiwa, anabesu. It was not easy. So, my childhood made me who I am. It was not nice. It was not only gold painted paint. It had different color paints. But by the grace of God, I made it out of that childhood, and I'm standing, and I'm here. We will be talking more about childhood, because every episode I'll be going back to my childhood, like I already told you. So, my dear friends, where am I going, and what am I trying to tell somebody today? I am saying to you, your childhood makes you who you are. Certain spirits adopt you when you are still young. Certain spirit possess you when you are still young. When it's a conclusion, when you have parents that are not united, you are going to meet trouble. Even if they are separated, may they be parents that protect you from spirits that are not seen. Whether people will look at it in an eye that it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. We are spirit beings. God is spirit. And when the Bible says Satan was thrown down, he did not come with a body. Remember, he was amongst the 3 angels, archangels. So Satan did not have a body when he came to earth. Because God is spirit. So as an archangel, the Bible also says the gifts of God are irrevocable. The gifts of Satan were not taken away from him. His powers were not taken away from him. So when he fell, he did not come alone. He came with the angels that he had corrupted. So they tend to be anything they want, anytime and anywhere. They are spirits that can become anything, anytime, anywhere. It is important to shield and cover your child as a parent. And if you are parents, 2 parents that believe in different things, you need to sit down and talk about it and agree on which way, on which path are you going to raise your child. Because they say, teach them which route to take when they are still young, so that when they grow up, they do not depart from it. To this day, I was raised by a woman who prayed, but my dad believes in ancestors. It was only age that gave me a right to choose. What do I belong to and what do I choose? But as parents, you need to be shielders of your children. You need to pray for your children. Because a lot of spirits are out and sent out to do whatever it pleases whoever who sent it out to the child. Before you blame witches, we are going to deal with that. Before you blame witches for your children's failure or whatever, go back to the foundation of the child. Was this child baptized? Was this child dedicated to God? Was this child brought up in a godly way? Was whatever you dedicate your child to now will make your child tomorrow. So my beautiful friends, it's also important to go back to childhood pains and deal with them, because my pains dealt with me as an adult. Kakhulu. Hahulu. My pains dealt with me. And it was not nice. So, thank you so much for listening. I hope my advice will be heard. I hope somebody understands that childhood makes us who we are. If you have differences with the other parent, sit down, talk about it. If you need counseling, go for counseling. If you need prayers, go for prayers. But whatever you do, please unite in bringing up your children. Your children are made by emotions, both your psychology, both your spirituality, both your finances, both your everything. You are molding a child, and God has given you God has qualified you to become that parent and has approved it. Please like, share, and comment, and see you next time. I love you guys.